Okay, so week 14 Monday, I'll be talking about this very, very long Perry-centric section from 123 to 147. So we learn a great deal about Perry and his past. We never get a section in the book that is as focused for Dick. We still learn things about his life, obviously, throughout, but this is definitely the most detailed and exhaustive section to help us understand Perry's character. So we start, in present day, kind of where we left off. The guys are in Mexico. They're running out of money. Dick can't find profitable work as a mechanic, which is his trade. So they are taking a bus to Barstow, California, and they are hitchhiking until they can find something to do. So a lot of people wonder, well, why don't they just split up? It's probably not good for them to stay together anyways. But just remember the dynamic between them in that, Dick is typically the dominant personality, and Perry does have this instinct to sort of cling to him. And it talks about how the severity of Dick's speech had actually kind of appealed to Perry. Like Dick kind of taking on that dominant role again sort of reinforced Perry's desire to be around him. So, it hurt his feelings and everything, but, he came across as masculine and pragmatic and decisive. And so he's like, okay. So in the hotel in Mexico, and this entire section is kind of under the premise that Perry is looking through his belongings and he's trying to figure out what he should take with him. They are going to be hitchhiking, so obviously he can't take his boxes of stuff that he's hoarded over the years. His guitar has been stolen, so he has to decide what to ship and what to keep in Mexico and what to do with what. Now, one very interesting detail, and this is near the top of page 125, is that this cardboard carton, which is going to be sent to general delivery Las Vegas, so that if they get to Las Vegas, then he can pick it up there. He has put the boots that were worn at the crime scene, one pair with soles that left a cat's paw print, the other pair with diamond patterned soles. So Perry and Dick's boots are going to be transported to Las Vegas. So, I'm sure the investigators are like, oh, if only they knew, then maybe they could really make some progress. But the boots have been preserved. They've been held on to all this time. Okay, so near the bottom of 125, we start to get some background information about Perry's life. We get to read some words from Perry's father, and man, this is rough to read. On occasions when I've read it out loud in class, it's so hard for me, a person who is used to reading, pieces with good grammar and punctuation, to read this. This is a bit of a mess. So it definitely gives us an idea of Perry's father's level of education. And anyways, it's a little rough. So the premise behind this letter is that it was actually written to the prison, the Kansas State Penitentiary, the parole board. And it was Perry's father's way of trying to help him out and trying to ask for Perry to get parole. So near the top of 126 starts talking about Perry's life, what Perry's life was like. We again, get the mention that Perry's mother was a disgraceful drunkard. So that obviously is something that affected Perry deeply. Not only, seeing her that way, but also, the poor care that she gave to her children. So, continues onward, talking about his childhood years and the issues that they had in terms of divorcing and the contesting of the divorce and the custody of the children. And just keep in mind that all of this is going on during Depression time, which it doesn't mean that Perry's father was personally feeling depressed. It is literally talking about the Great Depression. So we're back in 1930s or so, when the economy was absolutely in the toilet, and things were tough regardless. So Perry and his father lived in a house car for a while. Can't imagine that was a excellent living situation. And then kind of fast forwarding a little bit to the top of page 128, Perry ended up, for lack of other options, joining the Merchant Marines. So Perry fought in the Korean War. So he has a military history, which we knew about from his ability to tie knots and things like that. Let's see, going through his life, his tastes and dislikes and likes. We have seen that Perry is not much of a drinker. And then near the bottom of page 129, we get sort of a interesting, ironic statement. Perry has learned a lesson he will never forget. Freedom means everything to him. You will never get him behind bars again. So, obviously these are the things that you want to say to the parole board. These are the right things to say, but it's just horrifically ironic that, not just a few months after leaving prison, after Perry is granted parole, probably partly due to this letter, he's doing things that certainly could get him sent behind bars again. Yeah. So anyways, a bit of irony there. So the horrific grammar continues, but Perry's reaction to this is also interesting, and this is at the bottom of page 130. He does feel a great deal of self-pity. He knows that his life has been kind of rough, but also love and hate running evenly at first, the latter ultimately pulling ahead. So he's got a very complicated relationship with his father. He's gone through periods in his life where he loves him intensely. He's gone through periods where he's hated him. And it seems that hate has won in this case. So anyways, then we get some background on Perry's life from Perry's perspective, other than through his father's extremely poor grammatical perspective. We learn how his parents met. They were both professional rodeo performers. So it seemed while they were in the rodeo, life was pretty good. But when they were unable to perform anymore, then things got complicated. So near the very bottom of page 131, we see some of the effects that alcohol had on his mother. It so dissolved her self-respect that she generally did not bother to ask the names of the stevedores and trolley car conductors and such persons who accepted what she offered without charge. So what she offered, that could be a variety of things. Maybe she's just offering them a very nice snack. But the implication, obviously, is that maybe she has been not very... that she's perhaps been sleeping around a bit, is the implication, and that was alluded to in Perry's father's statement as well, is that she was involved with a variety of individuals. So anyways, throughout his childhood, Perry thought of his dad as this savior figure. He wanted his dad to come and save him, but before his dad was able to take him away, he was put into a few situations where he suffered really horrific abuse. So we already knew that he was in an orphanage with nuns for a while. It's one reason he believes that nuns are such, bad luck. He had a history of wetting the bed due to the high sugar content in condensed milk that he would consume when he was a child. It affected his kidneys and made it difficult for him to, have bladder control. So the nuns apparently felt that, if they hit him, then he would stop doing that. Maybe they thought he was doing it for attention. I don't know. But there was a variety of physical abuse there. Then he went to a children's shelter at the Salvation Army. They also had issues with his wetting the bed, but also were very, very extremely racist. Half Indian, and of course Perry looked very Indian. He resembles his mother a great deal. That was apparently enough to use derogatory racial slurs at him, dunk him in a tub of ice cold water until he was blue. So he got pneumonia. These are pretty traumatic situations for a child to go through. So his dad finally got him, and life was better. He made it through the third grade. That was the last year of formal school that Perry went through. So they were traveling in the house car after that. So let's see. So this is near the bottom of 132. And then 133, we start seeing the deterioration in he and his father's relationship. So as he grew up more, as he got older, he was able to appreciate his dad less. And he also realized the ways that his father was kind of insufficient in being a father. Perry had all of these talents that he worked really hard on. His musical talents, his vocabulary, his drawing skills, and his father never noticed or appreciated those things. So anyways, that was kind of the beginning of the end. And then when Perry joined the Merchant Marine, he had some more kind of abusive experiences. And it's easy to miss, but this bit where he talks about the queens on ship wouldn't leave me alone. Some very masculine, aggressive queens, which would have been kind of a derogatory term for someone who was gay back then. He says, those kind of girls, they can give you an evil time. They get together and gang up on you, and you're just a kid. So obviously Perry, possibly because of the trauma he's been through, probably doesn't want to explicitly state what happened to him, but get the sense that it's possible he was raped. At the very least, it seems very likely that he experienced some sexual assault from some men while he was in the Merchant Marines, and then also when he went into the Army. So that's one reason why I very, very strongly dismiss the possibility of anything between Perry and Dick because of this trauma and this sexual assault that Perry went through. It's highly unlikely that he would, be interested in a relationship with a man. And we've already heard about his relationship with Cookie, the nurse. So it's likely that he is, cisgender, straight, all that. So anyways, so trauma at every turn. Poor Perry. He just can't catch a break. Now on page 134, we get some bad and some good. We already knew about the motorcycle accident, so obviously, that's bad. Surgery, hospitalization, recuperation. But it seems like this experience that he had with Joe James and his family was a pretty positive one in the scheme of his life. Joe James was a young Indian logger and fisherman, and he had a whole bunch of kids. And Perry started this little school. He would teach them these talents that he had never been appreciated for before. And, it seems like this was a pretty happy period in his life. But then he, felt this responsibility toward his father, went up there and tried to help him out building the hunting lodge. But at the bottom of 135, we're seeing that didn't go anyplace. The Trapper's Den Lodge was a big fat fail. Maybe it's just a bad location, not enough clientele in the area, not enough tourism to support it. But his father got very angry and bitter and frustrated about this, of course. He put a lot of work into this, and he began to take things out on Perry. And then one night, they have a horrific fight at the top of 136 over a biscuit. So you know that you're getting real hangry when you almost kill someone you care about over a biscuit. So they argue over the biscuit. His father says some unkind things about him. Perry kind of snaps, puts his hands around his father's throat, says he doesn't even feel like he could control his own hands. His father goes and gets a gun and is about to shoot him, but the gun isn't loaded. So who knows what he would have done if it was, but the gun wasn't loaded. So Perry goes for a walk. His dad's kicked him out, and that seems to be kind of the end of their relationship. So Perry tries to find some purpose, some direction, ends up traveling with a fella whose last name is also Smith. And this is where Perry's fate starts to take a turn towards the criminal. Not that he was, living the straight and narrow life before that necessarily, but this is where things really start to turn illegal. So Mr. Smith, his traveling companion, makes a suggestion that they burglarize a nearby building. Perry says, okay. So in all of these situations that Perry gets himself into, he never seems to be the one suggesting the bad thing, but he seems very willing to go along with it. So maybe he's just easily influenced, easily peer pressured. He just doesn't seem to have the willpower to stand up to whoever is the dominant force in his life at that time. So they steal a whole bunch of stuff. They get pulled over. They get put in this cute little jail. But apparently the cute little jail had a window problem, and Perry and his buddy at the time escape from the cute little jail. They steal a car, and they split up. So Perry made it on the FBI's wanted list. Yikes. So after a variety of wandering around, and this is near the bottom of 137, he's briefly arrested for vagrancy, but he gives them a fake name, so he only spends a couple of weeks in jail, kind of wandering about, living, whatever life he can get. And then he is found out by the FBI. The FBI arrest him in the hotel. So they were determined to get him. Larceny, jailbreak, car theft. So this is the reason for his time in Lansing, where he met Dick, where he met Willie J. That kind of brings us up to just about present. Now, another interesting thing, of course, we know that Perry only has one living sibling since his other two siblings committed suicide. Barbara. Barbara seems to start out writing maybe for a good reason, wants to reach out to her brother, help him see the error of his ways. But it gets a little bitter and definitely ends up having the opposite effect. So near the bottom of 139, she kind of starts in on him. None of us have anyone to blame for whatever we have done with our own personal lives. So very pointed comment there, like, Perry, you screwed up your own life, you loser. Then she really likes this expression, which I had never heard before. It is no shame to have a dirty face. The shame comes when you keep it dirty. So referring to him as dirty, ethically and morally, saying that he needs to clean himself up. She does seem to have good intentions, but it just doesn't go very well. Constantly reminding him about his own culpability and criticizing him for blaming other people when, not that you should blame other people to avoid taking responsibility for your own actions, but Perry has been through some awful things, and it seems like a lot of the, abuse that he went through, Barbara did not suffer that. It doesn't seem like she experienced that. And it's hard for people who haven't been through trauma like that to understand the effects that childhood trauma can have, even on your adult life. So Anyways, she, at the top of 141, talks about what an embarrassment he is. Your present confinement is embarrassing to me as well as Dad. You're not showing any respect. You're not showing any regret. It's very, very judgy for sure. So, anyways, she carries on trying to get Perry to reform himself and exhibit some common decency. And then we have this other little letter from Willie J. Although I would like to make note that Perry experiences a really intense and kind of scary amount of loathing for his sister. The only regret that he has is that he wished his sister had been in that house. That house, of course, being the Clutter house. So most of us would respond to sibling judgment badly, but maybe not this badly. So we've heard before about Perry's temper, about how he reacts disproportionately to things sometimes, and this comment, I think, is a good example of that. But anyways, so Willie J talks about his impressions garnered from the letter, talks about how her letter progresses and her judgment gives way to temper, which is fair. At the very bottom of page 143, she talks about how since Perry is an unconventional person, he has definitely not lived a traditional life. Of course, it's very unlikely that this conventional little housewife could possibly be able to show the empathy and understanding necessary to understand his life. So they're just too far apart, in terms of life experience to really connect. And another interesting comment is that Willie J perceives her attitude towards her father as jealousy. Perry and his father, though they have had this very dramatic falling out, were definitely closer growing up than her father and her. So she sees Perry's rejection of her father as especially infuriating because she's like, well, he loves you so much. I wish he loved me that much. I wouldn't reject him if he loved me that much. How could you reject him like that? And how could you be angry at him and blame him for the things in your own life? So there's definitely some complicated emotion going on in this family. And then I think Willie J's conclusion is interesting too. If you pursue contact with these people in your life who seem to be kind of toxic for you, this will increase your antisocial instincts. It will distance you from the world. You won't be able to connect to people anymore if you continue engaging with this person who sparks these feelings of loathing and bitterness in you. So anyways, that's kind of Perry's family stuff. We do find out he did get his high school diploma in prison, so, he has tried to better himself in some way, I suppose. And then some more, little predilections that he has, his love of words, his little collection of facts, and this little speech, if I'm ever called upon to make a speech. So, I don't know, kind of funny that Perry would assume that at some point in his life he's going to be important enough and illustrious enough that he's going to have to make a speech. He just wants to be prepared just in case he gets to that day. Can't remember what I was going to say for the life of me. So a little bit artificial in nature, but interesting looking at what Perry thinks is worthy of collecting. This last quote he highlights as something especially important. What is life? It is the flash of a firefly in the night. It is a breath of a buffalo in the wintertime. It is as the little shadow that runs across the grass and loses itself in the sunset. So to Perry, he says this exactly evokes his view on life. Life is so brief, it's so transitory that why worry? Why stress about things? But at the same time, there's so much to worry about. So he's again reminded that, our day ends at 2 p.m., and tries to get Dick to, mobilize himself. He's busy having sex with his fiancée he has met in Mexico. So anyways, that's that section. So we just have one last short little section, and then that will be it for part 2. Woohoo!